Another Spider-Man project? Really? That's what I was saying a couple weeks ago when I was asked about your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, and boy am I glad to say I was wrong. What's going on, guys? I'm Chris, and welcome back to another video. So today I've got my review of Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. This is the latest Spider-Man project. It is an animated TV show that hits Disney Plus, begins streaming on January 29th, and I've actually had the honor and privilege of seeing all 10 episodes of this show already. So this will be my full review of the season. I won't get into spoiler territory, so don't worry. But before I get into this and give you guys my thoughts, be sure to hit that like button, comment down below your thoughts on the show so far, and of course subscribe to that notification bell to help me reach my goal of 150,000 subscribers here on the channel. It would mean a lot. So I'm gonna give you some context real quick. I said it up front of this video, and I'm not lying. You can watch some of my recent, rankings of comic book projects in this year by excitement. I was never too sold on Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. I just felt we're already inundated with Spider-Man enough between the Spider-Verse films, between the Tom Holland films, between the, Spider-Man games on PlayStation. We've got our fill of Spider-Man. Why introduce another one? And that's kind of the point of view I had approaching the show. So I had really low expectations just because I was like, I'm good. We've seen enough Spider-Man. I'm good. And again, maybe I was kind of fed up with a lot of Disney Plus shows missing the mark, Star Wars, Marvel, or otherwise, and so I just didn't have hopes for this, and I'm really happy to report that I was wrong, and I will admit I was wrong when it comes to my predictions for the show. Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man ruled. I had tons of fun with it, and I would watch many more seasons of this show. I already know they have a second and third greenlit from what I've read, and I say bring it on. Perhaps the biggest standout is I just loved the comic book feel of this show. And it's no surprise if you've been a subscriber for a while when I say this, I've never been a comic book reader. I've never really delved into that medium. And so I'm aware of comic books, but I'm not a comic reader. And I'm the first to admit that, trust me. That being said, this show was like watching a comic book brought to life. Simply based on the editing and transitions used, it made the show feel like I was flipping through a comic book as I watched. It was very immersive. In fact, it really did make every episode flow together like one big comic book by the end of it, and I was pretty delighted with that. The animation itself also brings the comic book feel to life, but not in the sense of, say, Across or Into the Spider-Verse. It's not as elaborate. It's more of a classic animated feel for a comic book story, like basically taking what you see on the page and bringing it to the big screen, whereas with Spider-Verse, it's like the most elaborate animation you can possibly conceive of in your mind. This is more small scale in terms of the animation, but it provides for a sort of vintage classic feel in a sense. This show excels at having the Saturday morning cartoon feel, which I was eating up. Growing up for me, I would watch Cartoon Network on Saturday mornings. I would have, I would be able to sleep in because it was the weekend. I'm thinking of when I was in like elementary school mainly, and I'd wake up and I'd watch Cartoon Network or whatever cartoons were on, and this has the feel of one of those shows that I would watch growing up. Each episode flies by because of how quick they are. They're like 25 minutes maybe when the credits are rolling. And on top of that, they're actually pretty wholesome family fun. Like each episode, you can kind of take away a valuable life lesson, which is something that reminds me of those classic cartoons from back in the day. There's like a moral of the story. It's pretty clear. This show, for the most part in every episode, I'd say, has like a valuable takeaway that you can apply to your normal everyday life. And that's something that I feel like a lot of superhero projects nowadays kind of got away from. Well, this show's a positive influence for kids out there, and I respected it for that. Now, where does Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man fit in the MCU timeline? Well, it's a part of Marvel Animation, and the show itself acknowledges main MCU timeline events from like Earth 616, but at the same time, it does it in a way where there's some ambiguity, and at the same time, it kind of claims, hey, this is not the MCU. So it's made pretty known that this is not Tom Holland's Peter Parker. However, a lot of events that do occur in the MCU also occurred in whatever timeline this specific Spider-Man is in. There's a lot of similarities, in fact, and at the end of the first episode, I couldn't help but have a big smile on my face. And if you're a fan of a certain MCU movie involving Spider-Man, I think you'll probably have a smile on your face as well. The way it was executed, I was just like, are they about to do this? I had a big grin on my face as the credits rolled. So you guys have seen that if you're watching this, because obviously episode 1 is out now. You know what I'm referring to? I was kind of like, whoa, I hadn't felt that way based on just an MCU show in a while. It reminded me a lot of like in Hawkeye when we see Yelena's POV of the blip. I was like, this is just a cool perspective I never thought we would see. And then this show kind of did something similar, but also put a little twist on it. And you know what I'm referring to if you've seen the show, but otherwise you're probably like, why is he being so vague? And it's because I don't want to spoil it for you guys, all right? And as the series progresses, it actually dives into the classic conflict associated with Peter Parker being Spider-Man, as he realizes once he assumes this role that everything's not cut and dry. Like, he has to be this vigilante, but he also wants to hang out with his friends on a Friday night and go to the movies or go to dinner, but he also has to study for school. And so these responsibilities start to add up, and it can become too much for Peter at times, and that is shown. It's like the classic Spider-Man trope that we see in the Raimi trilogy, or even the other two iterations in live action, where Peter Parker has to make decisions and he's got to grow up pretty quickly as he assumes this power. You know, responsibility comes with that. Not to be on the nose, but you guys know. Like, at the end of the day, Peter's a high school kid. He can't be 5 places at once. No one can. And so this entire, you know, life change for him of him getting these powers of Spider-Man, it's a learning point, and he's got to change his ways and, you know, learn to have balance in life. It feels very Karate Kid to say that, but it's true. Balance is something that we all need, and this show teaches us that. But, you know, Spider-Man himself has to learn to find that balance in this show. And as the series progresses, it brilliantly tackles that concept as Spider-Man continually has to put the good of others above his own desires. Being a hero is number one at the end of the day, not hanging out with his friend on a Friday night. And that's a tough choice to make. How can you explain that to your friend who doesn't know you're Spider-Man? They tackle all these concepts really well in the show. And in every episode, there are like new villains or threats present, which makes the world feel so lived in. On top of that, there are like nods and references to other heroes in the universe, just further proving that this is not a part of the main MCU timeline, but it's still cool to see these other heroes or villains in like background photographs or newspaper articles. And the series really is highlighting a young, inexperienced Spider-Man who struggles at times to clean up crime on the streets. He might find himself in an entanglement where he doesn't have the upper hand, but he's got to learn. So we get to see Spider-Man fail in this show, which is a refreshing take. And the voice actor who plays Spider-Man, Hudson Thames, has some Spider-Man quips and one-liners that got me good. It reminded me a lot of Andrew's Peter, and how when he was in the Spidey suit, he just had like the best one-liners when he was, you know, fighting a criminal or webbing him up. I got a lot of Andrew Garfield from the quips here, but the voice does sound a lot like Tom Holland's. And if you're a fan of the technical side of Spider-Man, the gadgets, the suits, you get a lot of that in this show. There's a whole episode pretty much devoted to experimenting with different suits, where I feel like real hardcore comic lovers will get a thrill out of it. And honestly, the experimentation with different suits reminded me of like Homecoming, when, you know, Tom's Peter is training, or even like the Spider-Man games on PlayStation. It felt classic Spidey for a lot of it. There's some impressive world building on display here as well. Like, every criminal facet of New York City is on display, from, you know, this gang to this villain who's running a tech business underground. Like, there's so much going on. It's a meaty season, meaning there is so much set up in the background of the main plot that this show could run for 10 seasons, and I don't think I'd get sick of it. And the crime scene of New York City is like fully developed here, with Spider-Man's rogue gallery in full force. There's like dozens almost of Spidey villains here, and more teased and set up for future seasons. It's exciting, but I gotta come back to this internal conflict with Spider-Man. The show tackles it really well. For it being an animated Disney Plus show, it kind of blew me away with how, you know, deep it got at times. There are moments where Spider-Man's trying to be true and honest to those around him that he loves and deeply cares for, but it's getting more difficult for him to live with this burden, this weight of carrying around this deep secret that he's living a double life, essentially, and he's got this whole other life as vigilante. And a trademark of any great Spider-Man to me is being able to take a beating physically, but get back up on your feet. And there may or may not be moments throughout the show where we see that on display, maybe even to the level of, say, Goblin v. Toby in that first Spidey, where, you know, Spidey's getting whooped up on, but he keeps fighting. He can do this all day, to quote Captain America. We see that here. Spidey puts his body and his health on the line to protect the city. This series is filled with some web-swinging Spidey action. There's big, in-your-face action moments. There are like emotional fight scenes. It's really got it all in terms of Spidey action, whether it's web-slinging or web-swinging. But at the same time, there are so many moments that just capture the joy and hope associated with this character. Being a hero is not black and white, and Spider-Man learns that in this show. There's a lot of, you know, that gray area that he has to operate in, and there are moments in the show where he has to say, hey, is this what's going to make me a hero or not? One of my biggest takeaways from Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man is the character work with Peter. You buy into him from the jump. You love him as a character. Obviously, we all know who Peter Parker is, but this specific iteration with the combination of the writing, the voice acting, the animation, it makes it so easy to see yourself in him no matter who you are, because we all love Spider-Man. We all want to be Spider-Man, right? He's the coolest superhero ever, maybe. And so with this specific version, they're really able to make him resonate with audiences. And I think my big takeaway is because there are moments where he realizes, yeah, life is difficult and everyone has their own unique path, but everything in life does happen for a reason. And you got to learn from it and you got to face it head on. Sometimes moments in life hurt like hell. Sometimes they're awesome, but regardless, you got to take them and run with them and make the most of them, because everything that happens to us makes us who we are at the end of the day. So as Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man Season 1 came to an end, finality was felt with the main plot points, in my opinion. And I didn't reveal a lot here, so there's a lot of surprises, trust me. But there was just so much time devoted to the world building with, side stories and, the criminal underworld of New York City, the heroes, the villains out there. This expansive world really just feels like it's being primed for the start of something truly special when it comes to animated Spider-Man media on Disney+. And this show delivered. I feel fed. It teased what's to come while, again, giving the audiences everything they could have asked for and then some. We got 10 episodes of amazing, dare I say, friendly neighborhood Spider-Man moments. And I can't help but say I'm glad I was wrong about Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. It's a big win for Disney+, in my opinion. Having seen the full season, I can say it's a win for Spider-Man. But that does it for my review of Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. Those are my honest thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments down below and hit that like button. Subscribe to that notification bell and stay tuned for more content coming very soon. But until next time, I'll see you guys later.